Welcome back to day 3 of our series built on the 23 trillion disability market report. I will include that link in the comments for the disability market report. On day 1, we collected the pieces. On day 2, we combined the overlaps. And today, we shift from bricks to people for change the lens, because I believe overlaps only matter if they serve the human holding all of those bricks. This isn't about adding more information. It's not about trying to overwhelm you. It's about consolidating, aligning with what you already know, and finding ways to implement. I've spent over a decade in the 23 trillion disability market, from clinical practice to scaling digital therapy companies and advising Fortune 500s. At the Resource Key, we've seen when companies change the lens to center on the customer, the whole system starts to click. Recently, on my podcast, Interconnected with Jordan, I had a guest on, Idan, and he shared a story that stuck with me. I asked him the question about if you could use one word to describe what accessibility means, what would that one word be? And he said independence. Then he described a coffee shop experience. So he was saying, ideally, people don't go to coffee shops just to get coffee. And it really did make me think a little bit more. I go to coffee shops to meet friends, have business meetings, or just even to feel connected to the community. So the coffee, when I thought about it, isn't really the point. The coffee is an enabler. And when I begin to think about just over the years going to coffee shops, I even remember one year the coffee shop enabled me to be really productive and get some paperwork done. And I pretty much spent a good amount of my days over the summer during school getting paperwork done. And I remember that year, all my friends got me it was Starbucks gift cards. I remember, just because I hadn't been in the coffee shop so much. So I say that all to say it's not about the product, the feature, or the category. Those are all really cool things, really important. But even more important is what it enables someone to do, to participate fully, to contribute, to connect. So we've been talking about the categories, 3 of the categories, the markets from the 23 trillion disability market report. So hearing, mobility, and tech. And we're shifting now to centering on the customer, because then when we do that, the market stops looking fragmented. It becomes one connected experience. When I think about this, I think also too, I use Legos a lot, but I don't know, when I think of Legos, I don't know the tools that allow Lego bricks to snap together. But what I do know to be true is what Legos enable me to do. I think of 3 things. So Legos enable me to sit on the floor with my daughters, who are 2 years old and 7 years old, and build something side by side. Legos enable me to be able to play with them at the same time all together. And for me, that's valuable because there's an age gap, and sometimes the toys may not be age appropriate for the 2-year-old or age appropriate for the 7-year-old. And that's valuable. The third thing that I believe it does is it enables memories and time spent with my 2 daughters. So notice I didn't say anything about how Legos is made or how the bricks are designed, because as a customer, the value isn't in the mechanism, it's in the experience. And the same is true, I believe, for the market. People don't want to know every layer of industry or product. They want to know, what will this enable me to do? Who will it allow me to become? So I'm going to share my screen so we can get into day 3. All right, so this is the 23 trillion disability market report. I have screenshot just a small part of this disability market report, right? So this week we focused on 3 of the markets: rehabilitation and physical therapy tech, hearing aids and assistive living devices, and then smart home and accessibility technologies. Those are the 3 out of the 24 high growth markets that we focused on that overlap with the 23 trillion disability market. Day 1, we collected the pieces, right? So each piece or each market was standing alone, right? Day 2, we started combining them. So we noticed that hearing aids and assistive listening devices and smart home, those connected. And then we had back pain rehab, right? And so what were the enablers? What did those enable? So communication, mobility, and independence, all right? And so together we saw that these 3 markets that overlap the disability market combined is a total of 3.5 trillion opportunity. Now this is represented by one person. And today we are changing the lens. So that's where we'll go for today. All right, so like I said, the disability market report, that is in the comments. And today we are focusing on day 3. So when we look at the 3.5 trillion, we look at it differently today, right? We look at it not as hearing aids and assistive living devices is separate, and rehabilitation and physical therapy tech is separate, and smart home and accessibility technologies are separate. We're looking at it as one connected opportunity because this is inside of one person's life. We took the example of, let's say, your parent who has a hearing aid, has always had difficulties with having back pain, and now has developed arthritis in their hand, and it makes it difficult to use their smartphone. When you center on the customer, you stop selling the categories and start solving things in real time. The products and markets become invisible layers. And what the customer sees then, the value, so the transformation you are enabling. So companies really that are winning are designing ecosystems around real lives. All right, so here, like I said, these now have become invisible layers, right? Rehabilitation and physical therapy tech, hearing aids and assistive living devices, smart home and accessibility technologies, and then we have our enablers. So what is this enabling? Increased mobility and independence, increased communication, and now this is all represented by one person who is holding all of these different layers, but it's an invisible layer. And I say that because they're not thinking about all 3 separate markets necessarily. They're thinking about what it's enabling. All right, so we're going to think about this and think about it in real time. All right, you've said a lot, Jordan. What does this all look like? So taking the overlaps yesterday, you identified, or taking the overlaps from day two, you identified, we're going to write one short customer story that ties it together. I have an example that I put together, and then you can go and use this example as a framework for maybe a product, feature, or category that you're thinking of. But what we're ideally doing is showing the live reality of one person and the value of what's being enabled. So I created this customer story based off of what it is enabling for them. So, like I said, think of your parent when I am sharing this story. So, it would be coming from your parent's point of view. And so they may say to you, you know what really matters to me? It's that I can pick up the phone now when you call and actually hear your voice, that I can walk to the kitchen without feeling like I'm holding you back, and that I can sit on the floor and play with your kids without worrying. Those moments make me feel like I'm still myself, still part of this family, still have my independence. And that's what all of this is really about. All right, so notice that story didn't list products, features, or categories. It showed the lived reality of one person, which the example we gave was your parent, and the value of what's being enabled. So I want you to think about it from, like I said, a product. Maybe you're building a product, maybe you have a business. I want you to consider who is the person that is holding your bricks, what's their lived experience across your offerings, and where does that story reveal a bigger opportunity than your categories suggest? And then write 2 to 3 sentences. You can keep one customer journey in mind and you can keep it human. You may already have a story that someone has shared, and you may not have thought of it from this perspective. And then after that, you can, go back and think about the invisible layers behind it and what's enabling it. But you could really do that for each testimony or customer story, or maybe you've met up with someone at a coffee shop and they've talked about the impact that your product or service has had on their life. And you may have said, wow, I never thought of it like that. So in those moments, I want you to start thinking about, all right, what were the invisible layers behind that? And then what are the things that, based off of what the customer said, that it enabled for them in real time? So in the comments, share one short story that connects 2 or more of your products or offering, or one. Make it concise, real. And then the 23 trillion disability market report is in the comments, so you can get that. Stories, I believe, are powerful, but the breakthrough happens when you turn stories into systems. If you take one thing from today, or even all the days that we've spent together for this 23 trillion disability market report session, I want you to think about this. Customers care about what the bricks enable them to do. The companies, I believe, who will win the next decade won't be the ones with the biggest pile of bricks. They'll be the ones who learn to see differently, who treated products and markets as invisible layers, and focused, shifted, changed their lens on what those layers enable: independence, connection, dignity. Those are the towers the world can't ignore.